Go.
Hi, today we're going to work on some more word problems using percents. This is from 6.6 on your online work, and there will be two parts to it. The first part we're going to talk about sentence word problems. I can't think of a better word it is. It's not a whole little paragraph of stuff. It's just a little quick small sentence. Something like 10% of what is something or the other. Those are little just sentences. There are two ways that you could do these problems, and so I'm going to show you both methods. You can use whichever one you want. The online might tell you to use an equation, but you can use a proportion if you want to. It's up to you, but you have to know how to do one of these two methods. The first is the traditional method, and it's where you're going to translate the sentence into a math, and then you're going to either do the math or you're going to solve the equation that you've made. Okay? Now, in order to turn it into an equation, we have to remember what our math words mean. Remember that of means to multiply. So every place you see the word of, that's where you put your multiplication symbol. And remember that is means where your equal sign would go. So if you see of, it's a multiplication sign. Is your equal sign. Now, remember, you cannot multiply by a percent, nor can you divide by a percent. So if you've got the percent in your problem, the very first thing you have to do is to change it into a decimal so that you can do the math. Or if you're looking for a percent, at the end when you get a decimal, you have to change it into a percent by doing the Dr. Pepper move your decimal point idea. So that's what makes this method, I think, a little more complicated, is that you have to remember the percent thing. So let's look at an example. If I have 10% of 30 is what? So the first thing I'm going to do is to translate it into math. Well, 10%, okay, well the first thing I have to do is to move my decimal point twice. That's how I get 0.10. Of means times, and then 30. Here's my is, so that's where I put my equals. And then the what is what I don't know. So I chose to use a W. I did not choose to use an X because I'm putting an X over here for my multiplying sign. So now my equation is 0.10 times 30 is equal to W. Well, just do the math and you'll get that 3 is equal to what W is. Okay? Another example. Find 30% of 120. So if you translate that into math, 30% would be 0.30. Of means to multiply, and then your 120, just do what you said, and then that's how you get your answer. Okay? A third example. What percent of 80 is 72? What percent? I don't know it, so I made up a letter. Of means times. 80 is my equal sign, 72. Well, now this is an equation. I can't just do math. So I have to divide by the 80 to get it over there, and that would give me that P is equal to 0.9. But remember, P is a percent, so I have to take 0.9 and do my Dr. Pepper method, move it from a decimal to a percent, and that's how I get 90% for my final answer. The last example, 1.4% of what is equal to 21. If I'm going to do it by the sentence, I have to take 1.4% and change it into a decimal, so you have to move the decimal point twice. That's how you get 0.014. Of means times, I don't know that, equals, there's my is, 21. This is now an equation. It's not just a math problem, so I'm going to divide by 0.014, and that's how I get W is 1500. Okay? So this is how you would do them if you do them by the translate into an equation idea. The second way of doing these problems is the way that you do more traditional word problems, and that's by using a proportion, okay? So we're going to set up a proportion. In every single one of these, you always have three things. You have what it is, what it's of, and the percent. So we're going to put the is on top of the of, that's one side, and then your percent, and it would go on top of 100, because remember that's what percent means, out of 100. Once you get the proportion done, cross multiply and solve it. The advantage to this method is you don't ever have to worry about moving the decimal which way or did you move it the right way, because you don't have to do that in this method. All right, so let's look at each of these three examples, only this time let's do it by proportions. What percent of 80 is 72? Okay, so here's the of, Here's the is. So now I have 72 over 80. I don't know my percent, and that goes on top of 100. When you cross multiply, you have 7,200 is equal to 80, whatever your percent is. Divide by 80, and you get 90 is your percent. So that's just your answer. 1.4% of what is 21? Well, that's your percent. That's easy to find. Of, you don't know. Is 21. So is goes on top, 21 over my of. My percent was 1.4, and that goes over 100. Cross multiply, you have 2100 is 1.4 times your of. Divide by 1.4, and you get 1500 is your of. 10% of 30 is what? That's my percent. Here's my of. Here's my is. So I'm going to put is over 30, because I don't know the is, and 10 over the 100, because that's my percent. Cross multiply, you have 100 is equal to 300. Divide by 100, and you'll get the is equal to 3. If you do this problem, 30% of 120, the of is 120, but there's not even an is in it, so obviously you don't know what it is. So you have is over 120, 30 goes over 100, cross multiply and divide, and you get 36. So you can do these little mini sentence problems either way you want to. Either change them into a math problem and either solve it or do it, or change it into a proportion using the idea of the is over the of and the percent over the 100. Cross multiply, and what you get is your answer. When you do it by the sentence, remember you have to change the percents into decimals before you can do it. Hope that helps.